Alright, so in this video I'm going to show you how to create a very simple blog application. This tutorial is going to assume you have some amount of experience with web development. Let's start by logging into cPanel to create a MySQL database. Once logged in, you will want to visit the MySQL databases page and create a new database for us to use. A blog application will require a way of storing and retrieving data. That is what the database is for. Give your database a name. It can be whatever you like. Create a user for your database and a password for your user. Again, this can be whatever you like. Now add the database user that you just created to the database that you just created and click on all privileges, make changes, and that's it. Our database is entirely set up and ready to use. Next up, we are going to want to create a new PHP file. Let's call it mysql.php, and we will use this to connect to our database, the database that we just created in cPanel. So let's open the MySQL file in your favorite PHP editor, and the code that we're going to concern ourselves with in this case is the database name, database password, and database name. So to find those out, they will be available via your cPanel page. In this case, we called our database name demo blog, but on cPanel servers you will always need to prefix your database name with the FTP username and an underscore. So the FTP username in this case is destroy underscore, which makes our database name destroy demo blog, and the same applies to our user. So we created a database user which was named admin, but since we are using cPanel, the actual username is destroy underscore admin, since the FTP username is destroy. So let's start with the database username, destroy underscore admin, and we'll go back to our code editor, and we'll add that right here where it says db name. This is the code that we're going to be using. So this first line just puts connection values into the database, the variable con, short for connection, and those are going to be our database host value, which is almost always localhost, but in some cases it's not. In the case of cPanel servers, it's always localhost, so you won't need to worry about that. But if it's not, you can find out what your own host value actually is. The database name, database username is just going to be what we typed in, and in this case we will not be using the prefix. We'll just type in the password itself without any prefix, okay, because we don't need the prefix for the password, but we do again need the prefix for the database name, which is set down here. So the database name is destroy demo blog, and so we'll just put that in there. And that's a complete connection. That will connect us to the database with the host, database username, database password, and database name. So that's good. Let's save that file. And we will be using this file later. We will be including this file later in our actual script when we need to connect to a database. Alright, let's create a new file, and let's call it tables.php, and this will set up some of the database tables that we're going to be using. So fairly simple to do that. Here's the code. Well, first we want to name the database table. In this case, we'll create a database table called, let's say, entries, that will hold our blog post entries. And this line here says create table if it doesn't already exist, table, and the variable table is entries. So create table if not exists, entries, and then it sets a primary key which all database tables really need if you're going to be developing with them. I'll explain. I don't really need to understand this right now, but essentially this creates an auto-incrementing number field for each record that gets inserted into this database table. An auto-incrementing number field will automatically get inserted, so it'll start with 1 and then be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and it'll always be unique. It'll be a unique way to identify a particular table. And why that is useful, we'll get to that soon. For now, just make it so. The next line, we're going to alter table, which is of course entries, because we've defined the variable tables up here as to being entries. Add and table name, and I'm just modifying something I copied and pasted over from a different script, so let's add one called title, and we're going to change this actually to be text, not null. Alright, so that'll create a field called title, which will be the title of our blog post. It'll hold the titles of our blog posts. Let's create a field called summary. Again, this will hold the summary of our blog posts. Let's create another one called description, or rather let's call it content, or rather let's call it, yeah, we'll call it content. That'll be good. So this will set up a single database table called entries that creates these 3 fields within that database. Now a database is essentially just a spreadsheet. So this will be creating a spreadsheet with these columns within it. Alright, fairly simple. Let's save that file. And I'm actually going to show you what this file does. Alright, so let's go back to cPanel, and we will go to cPanel homepage by clicking up here, little home icon. Scroll down until you find PHP MyAdmin. Click on it. Go to it. Wait for it to load. And on the left we have all our databases. Right here we see our Destroy Demo Blog, which is the database that we are working in. Right now it says no tables found in database. It's completely empty. There's nothing there. No tables, no data. But we're going to change that really soon. We're going to create a table using our PHP script that we just created, this one here. Now let's upload this information to our FTP, and I'm going to do this wrong initially so you can understand why. But if I go here, refresh the page, and load the tables page, it'll give me this error. Alright, it cannot do what I requested because I haven't connected to the database. In order to connect to the database, I have to use this connection information here, which I created in the first file. So this file here is called mysql.php. This one's called tables.php. So to use all the code in here, I want to use this command line, use this PHP command. Include mysql.php. Alright, so we put MySQL in quotation marks, and we finish it with a semicolon, as we finish all lines in PHP, and we put it above all of these commands instead of below because putting this here is exactly the same as putting this here. Okay, there is no difference as far as PHP is concerned. Alright, so this is just an easy way, include file name, whatever the name of the file is, to include a file that we might use over and over and over again. So we don't have to always type out the same code in every single file. So let's save that now, and we will upload it, and we will return to our page, and we will refresh. We'll see absolutely nothing, but something will have happened if we go and we look at PHP MyAdmin now. Refresh. We will see on the left a table called entries. If we click it, we will see our fields here: title, summary, content. Alright, so now we have a table with some columns that are just waiting for data. Alright, so let's get to adding some data to them. Alright, so fire up Dreamweaver or your favorite HTML editor, I'm using Dreamweaver 4. This tutorial is not 15 years old. I just prefer Dreamweaver 4 because it is the most lightweight of all the Dreamweavers that have been created, and I like it because it's a nice, simple visual editor that has good code editing features as well. You'll probably be using a much more recent version of Dreamweaver, but I prefer Dreamweaver 4. Regardless, our first duty here is to create a form. The form is going to collect the information that's going to be inserted into the database. This is basically a way to collect user input in the browser, and that's actually exactly what forms are for. Specifically with PHP, they can be used to send and retrieve data, actually send data from the user input to whatever function that we want to do with the form. In this case, it'll be to insert into a database, but it can be a lot of other things as well. So anyway, insert form. All right, you can see the red boundary box symbolizes that we have a form here. Insert, and actually here's what the code looks like, and I'm actually going to delete everything which is not necessary because we're just going to look at the source code. The rest of that was page formatting. So this is what the insert form did, created a form, and we're going to insert a form object which will be a text field. Alright, let's call this text field title and copy and paste. We can make one called summary, copy and paste. We can make another one called content. Alright, if you remember, we created 3 database fields, title, summary, and content. So we're creating 3 database or 3 form fields called title, summary, and content. I'm going to make this one a little bit longer because it's pretty short. I'm going to make this one also longer, and this one I'm going to change to be a multi-line field, which is also longer, and let's say 15 lines high. That'll give us a bit of room to type our blog entry in. Alright, to do that, if you're using Dreamweaver, old version or new, all you have to do is click the object and look at the properties window, and you will be able to set all sorts of different properties for whatever item you have selected. Now hit enter, whatever, and insert form objects and a button. Now we need our submit button, and this will submit the form. Alright, so let's save this as insert, because we'll use this particular page to insert some data into our database. And let's go to our FTP, upload that page, come back, take a look what we have done. We have created, if we view our insert page, we have created this form, which does precisely nothing yet. But you can still type in it and click submit. It just doesn't do anything because we haven't told it to do anything yet. So let's tell it to do something. Alright, to tell it to do something, we want to change its action to point to a different page, which we will use to parse the form data that gets sent and insert it into the database. So let's call this, we'll put it to file, actually, here, let's do a different sequence. We'll take this, rename to dbinsert. We'll delete everything that's in there. So now you see we have a file called dbinsert, which we will create all the actions to do with the form. And what we will do is we will change the action of this form itself, and we do that by clicking the little red icon, or the little red outline in Dreamweaver. Or if you're looking at the source code, you can just look at the action here and type in the name dbinsert.php of the file that you want the form to send information to, because a form will send information to a particular file. Whatever page on the website that you want to send the information to is the page file name that we use here. So doing that in the source code is the same as doing it, typing it in right here. You can see they're in both places now. Alright, So now if we save that, upload it, upload to DB Insert. If we go back here, refresh the page, and click Submit again, you'll see it goes to a page called DB Insert. Actually, you can't see that because I have the screen too low, but I can fix that. You can see up here it goes to DB Insert, but there's nothing happening on the page, so I should probably make that visible, so that's what I will do. Now you can see what we're looking at. So let's now go and tell the DB Insert file to actually do something. Alright, so open up DB Insert in your favorite code editor or Dreamweaver, whatever you prefer. And this is the code that we are going to use. Alright, so this is the code that we're going to use. Insert into table, and let's not forget to define the table variable. Table equals entries. Insert into table set title equals post. Actually, you know what? I missed a step because we haven't named the form field fields yet. This one here currently is called text field, but we want to rename that to title. And this is case sensitive, so be careful, uppercase or lowercase. They all have to match up. Let's call this one summary. Let's call this one content. Alright, so now we have everything that we need there. So insert into table set title equals post title. Copy and paste that line or whatever. Type in another line called summary equals summary. Spaces do not matter. You can have spaces or no spaces if you want in between summary equals yada yada yada. And finally the last field, content equals post content. Alright, so this is going to insert into the table entries, E-N-T-R, I didn't spell that right, this wouldn't work very well. Insert into table entries, title equals post title, summary equals content, or sorry, summary equals summary, content equals content. So this variable here, the $_post, and then the name of the form field inside of square brackets, this is the data that the user types in to the title field. Alright, this one here, summary, is the data that the user types into the summary field. And the reason that we know this is because we've named this one title, we've named this one summary, and we've named this one content. So that's all we're doing, is we're matching these up, title, summary, content. And that's how you get data out of a post, out of a form post with PHP. It's using this $_post in capital letters, bracket or square brackets, and then the name of the form field itself. Alright, so if we upload this, let's not forget to include our MySQL file, because this is a database function and you cannot do anything with the database unless you're connected to it. So we just take include MySQL.php from our previous file and copy and paste it over. And let's give a little message once this let's forget the message. Never mind. Let's just I'll just upload it and see how it works. So uploading our newly modified files. Visiting the insert page again, refreshing, title equals test example hey or whatever, and click submit. Now we won't see anything because we have not set anything to show. All we've told the PHP to do is insert that information into the database. So let's see if it did by clicking the database name here. You can click browse, but it's actually already open. And here you can see the first data entry that we just entered. Test example hey, title, summary, content. Alright, so now we can insert database entries at our leisure. So, you know, whatever. Oops. Submit. And if we go back to PHP click Browse, now you can see we have another row of data that has been inserted into our database. So that's great. Now we can get the data in, which is good, but we also want to be able to get the data out, which is what we're going to do next. Alright, so back in Dreamweaver, let's create a new page. I'm going to delete everything that we don't need from the source code, and this is going to be pretty simple. This is going to be a pretty simple blog with no formatting and no structure or anything. It's just going to get the data out, essentially. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to need to use this code, PHP table equals entries, and don't forget to include the MySQL file. So what this particular bit of code does is it will select from a table, whatever table we specify, and then put the results into a loop. So it'll loop through every single record in the database and output it in between these two curly brackets. So right now it's not going to output anything because we haven't told it to do anything, but it will shortly. So select from table entries, result equals yada yada yada, and now and this is how we get data out of a table. We use echo row, and then the name of the database field. So echo row title. All right, so let me save and upload that, and I'm going to call this posts, or sorry, I'll call this entries. NTRIs. I'm going to call this entries, and I'm going to upload it. Now if we head over to our entries page, what we can see here is it has looped out both of our database rows, and we have one which is called test, and another which is called whatever. Those are the titles. We told it to output the title fields sequentially, one at a time. Oops. So that's what it did, test whatever. Now as you can see, it just put them both in the same line because we haven't applied any sort of formatting at all. But if we wanted to put them each into their own paragraph, for example, we could do something like this, and that would put each one into their own paragraph. So if we go and look now, we will see that they are each in their own paragraph. If we wanted to do something silly like echo the same line in between each one, and I just want to show you how a loop works, because it will repeat the same thing over and over again until it has read all the rows in the database. So what's going to happen here is, actually I'll show you. So what it's doing is first test, and then it's doing the same line, and then whatever, and then it's doing the same line again. So it's doing the same thing over and over again, exactly the same for each distinct unique row in the database. So if we wanted to, we could put this into its own table, or we could put an image beside it, or we could do any number of things that we wanted to, and it'll be repeated over and over and over again for each row in the database. What we're actually going to do is we're just going to put it simply into a header tag, and then we're going to put the description into a paragraph tag, or sorry, the summary, and then we will put the content into, and actually let's make that, we'll make that bold so it can be identified, and we'll make that the content field. So now what's going to happen is every database entry, database row, is going to be looped out sequentially in that format. Right? So now we have our title header, or our title, our summary, and not the description of our blog post, which is how we get the data out. Next, we are going to want to possibly edit our data, edit the data that we already have in one of these rows. Alright, so let's create, what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit to our file, our insert file. It's actually going to be insert or update now, but it's still going to be named insert. And what we're going to do here is we're going to select a particular row from the database. Alright, so again, don't forget to include the mysql.php file, and don't forget depending on if you're using this exact code or not, don't forget to name your table into the table's variable entries. So what this particular line of code does is it selects one single record from the database. What we're going to do is we're going to select from table where ID, do you remember the auto-incrementing unique ID field that I mentioned when we were setting up this table? This is where we're going to use it, where table equals, and we're going to use get ID. And what's a get? Well, it's kind of like a post, but a little different. I'm actually going to show you how get works right now. So select from yada 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 where equals etc. So in order to edit some of these entries, we're going to go back to our insert file, or sorry, our entries file, and we're going to add a little bit of code. We're going to echo in brackets, or whatever you like, echo edit, and this will be a link, so turn this into a link and point it to the file insert.php, ID equals row ID, and I'm going to explain what this is about in a second. When we insert a link in HTML, or sorry, when we insert quotations into an echo, we need to slash them out, or else it will cause a parse error. So just slash out both of these quotation marks. That's a backslash just in front of the quotation marks. So insert .php ID equals row ID. Alright, let's upload, and let me show you what we're doing here. So we're going to go to insert, we're going to go to entries, and now we have this little link called edit underneath each blog post entry. And if we click these entries, or sorry, I'm just going to show you, I need to adjust my, hang on a sec. Alright, so I just adjusted my screen area a little bit. So what we're going to do here is when I mouse over here, if you can see the very bottom of the screen where it says destroyeagle.orgs yada 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 insert.php question mark ID equals 1. And if I look at this one, it says question mark ID equals 2. So what this is referring to is this unique ID number that automatically gets created for each entry. So this one's ID 1, ID 2. Since we have 2, there are only 2 so far, so 1 and 2. But if I click this link, and the way, if you look here, what I'm saying is insert or echo row ID, which is echoing out that particular row. The question mark here puts this into a get variable, and that is what I told you that I was just going to explain, which is also found here, get ID. Alright? So that's what we're getting. We're getting ID. ID from ID echoing row ID, which is here. Alright, so I hope that's clear what we're kind of doing here. And so if we head over to our entry page, our form entry page, and we add a little bit of code here, echo get ID. What's going to happen is whenever a link is clicked that has the ID in the get variable, it's going to show it up here. Alright, so that one was 1, this one down here is 2. Okay, so the reason that that is important is because when we select from table where ID equals get ID, we need to know which number that row is. Alright, so this is going to select all of that data from that one row, and we're going to be able to use this now in our form field, or in our form. And the way that we use it is by echoing, sorry, I'll do this in the source code, value equals PHP echo row ID, or sorry, row title, and down below we have row value equals summary, and below that we have content. Yeah. Case is always having to match, so content. So these echo row title, echo row summary, echo row content is exactly the same as when we echoed those three things out here and made them display over here. Now what we want to have happen is when a user clicks edit, we want to print out the information that is already in that database row so that they can edit it. So let's give that a try by uploading our files. And click edit for test example. And as you can see, we have test example, but something is wrong with the content entry. And I might have done that wrong. It's not a value entry. What is it? I forget. Okay, yeah, alright. It's just actually in between the two text area tags. Alright, so let's save and upload that. And we will refresh, and now we have everything. The only thing that we need to do now is we want to make a little switch. We want to tell the field that if this is an edit, we don't want to insert a new row. We want to edit the existing row. And to do that, we will add a little switch to the action here. What we'll do is we'll add query type equals query type. Alright, so now we're going to define query type. So what we'll do is say if get ID, sorry, if not empty get ID, and that's what the exclamation mark is. If not means not, if not empty the get ID variable, then query type equals 1. Whatever. We're just going to use this to figure out if this is an edit or an insert. Alright. So if we take a look at this page, empty, and we click submit, it goes to dbinsert.php. Or sorry, did I upload that? No. Click submit, it goes to dbinsert.php, query type equals query type, and that's a little bit wrong because this is actually supposed to be PHP echo query type. And the way that we insert PHP into HTML, we can insert PHP tags into HTML, and I haven't actually specifically commented on this yet, but we can do so anywhere that we like just by adding this PHP tag and then our PHP code inside of it, and then closing it with that closing tag there. So this is going to actually echo the query type up here. If ID is empty, then query type won't equal anything. If ID is not empty, then query type will equal 1. Alright, so let's upload that. And try that again, submit. So right now, with insert at the page insert.php, we click submit, query type is empty, like there's nothing there. But if we go back to our page here and click edit, query with ID equaling 1, and click submit, this time query type equaled 1 because ID equaled 1, which means it wasn't empty. And that is important because what we're going to do over here on the DB insert page is we're going to add a little switch, whether to update or insert. Alright, so if get query type, if empty get query type, then do the insert, because we'll assume it's an insert, not an update. And if get query type equals 1, and the way we say equals is with 2 equal signs, and then what we want something to equal. So if query type equals 1, then we're going to update, not insert, into update table set title equals title, summary equals summary, content equals content, where ID equals get ID. And you know what? We did not define the get ID variable in the form field yet, so we better do that. So DB insert query type equals query type, and actually this was all a little bit redundant because we probably could have just used the query type ID, but whatever, too late now. And ID equals get ID, or not get ID, get equals, yeah, it could be get ID, that's fine, get ID. So ID equals get ID. So now we have all of that created. And if we go back to our browser and we edit a row, edit hey for example, and we're going to call it test2, submit, and sorry, I screwed that up a little bit. Actually we need to ID equals PHP echo get ID, save that, reload or re-upload. Try that one more time. Test2, submit. This time query type equals 1. And actually it would be nice if after doing something on the database that we automatically saw our blog posts. So to do that, what we will do, actually I'll just show you what we did first and then I'll show you what we're going to do next. If we refresh our page here, we can see that test has now been edited. It is now called test2. I'm going to add a little switch here into the DB insert page. As you can see, maybe from the number of times that I refresh the page without any information, we have a bunch of blank entries that have been inserted. So we don't want that to happen. So what we will do is we will go to the DB insert page, and what we will add is if not empty get query type and not empty post. And then do that. So the way that we say and in an if statement, if we want two conditions to be equal to or not equal to or greater than or less than or whatever, is we use two and symbols. So what we're saying here is if query type get query type is empty and not empty post, so that there is some information in the post, it's not just an empty post, then do that. And same thing for this. If the post is not empty, then do that. Just going to insert that. And now if we head over to the DB insert page, just refreshing shouldn't cause any issue. we can see it does not, which is good. I'm just going to go into PHP MyAdmin and delete some of those empty records. And you can do this pretty easy in PHP MyAdmin by clicking the database table that you want, clicking Browse, and then by using PHP MyAdmin to select the rows you don't want, click delete, it'll ask for confirmation, click yes, and now we will have gotten rid of some of those records. This tutorial is not going to show how to delete records with PHP, but we certainly can. So what we're going to do here is a little refinement just to make the editing process easier for our very simple blog script with no formatting whatsoever. After inserting or updating a record, what I'd like to see is I'd like to see the blog page itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to include entries.php. So this will, after the database stuff is done, it will then include the entries PHP page and show us what we have done right away without having to click back and forth. So let's see how that worked. So if I edit test 2 and I'm going to change this to test 3, click submit, now we can see right away that that did not work. Why did that not work? Alright, well here's why it didn't work, because I did some stupid, I don't even know what I did here, get post, that doesn't mean anything. If not empty post is what we actually need to change that to. Alright, so we're going to re-upload that and try again. Test 3, and now we have it saying test 3. We can do that pretty easy, so whatever. Now we can add new entries or edit our existing entries very easily. I'm going to add a simple link to our insert page up here at the very top. Our entries page, rather, at the very top. Call it add new post. I'm going to link it to the insert.php page, and this will just actually what I'll do is I'll add a nice little horizontal rule under it for some separation. Upload, and refresh over here. And now if I want to add a new post, I'll just click this link, my new post, yay, almost done. Submit, and now we have my new post here. And that about covers the basics of database functionality. We have our do a quick review. We have our MySQL database, which connects to the database, or our MySQL database file, which connects to the database. We have our tables file, which creates tables within the database. We have our our form field, which collects user input. The form field posts to a particular file. The particular file that it posts to takes some actions on the information that gets posted, in this case inserts into the database table. And then we have our entries page, which outputs the posts within the database. So yeah, this is database interactivity, user database interactivity. And that concludes this tutorial. Hope you liked.